Well, hey everybody. Welcome to something I haven't done, I don't think ever before, really dug into a mower too much. Hey, it's Josh with Carl's Mower and Saw. And recently in our region, in our area, we had some flooding happen, right? There was some serious flooding that devastated many parts of our community. Many families experienced great loss. Some of the loss was outdoor power equipment. But is it a loss? So this mower came in the other day, and the owner of it told me that they had 18 inches of water in their garage. So 18 inches is about to right here. So that means pretty much the complete mower was submerged, the engine was submerged. Don't know if the fuel cap went under, but really you can kind of see that it had some serious depth to it. Let me get rid of this tape measure. And this isn't just clean water that came up and went down. It's not like I threw it in my bathtub for a minute and then pulled it out. This is nasty, gritty water. In fact, my in-laws had some flooding, and I have some of their stuff at my house, and I've been cleaning it. They've got some lawn chairs that I just can't get this silt off of. I've washed them, but I actually need to get the pressure washer out. So this silt right here came up and submerged the mower. And more than likely we can get this thing running again, but it's a little scary as a mechanic, as a shop, to dig into it and to really repair it, because this gritty, silty, nasty stuff was everywhere. It was on bearings in the wheels, it was in the starter, it got into the transmission, more than likely got into the crankcase. So we're going to dig into this machine a little bit today and kind of look at where some of this damage was, see if we can revive it, revitalize it, and get it up and functioning again. So let's start. You know what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pull the starter off. And I've got some tools here. Hopefully I grabbed all the tools that I'm going to want or need for this. Let's pull this starter off here a minute. Well, why the starter? I mean, a rope can get wet, right? Well, there's a spring in here, right? And there's a spool or a pulley that was soaked in this gritty stuff. Yeah, we can see that there was this silt up on the top. So right now, this is working. That's good. That's awesome. And it may very well continue to work, but did that spring get rusty? Is that grit on the spindle, per se, that this pulley rotates on? So how long till this starter rope goes out and doesn't come back in? Right now, I think we're all right. So this one, we feel all right about. I'm going to drain the oil out of this. I have not even pulled the rope. Thank goodness. I think that would be a bad thing to do. And we're probably going to have to do multiple oil changes because, right? I mean, what got in there? What's going to come out? It'll be really interesting here. This doesn't look too bad. This one, I'm feeling all right about this mower. I do feel a little bit of grit in the oil, but the coloring looks good. It could just be, that it was sitting or last year's oil that had the grit anyways. All right, we're draining. Yeah, it's definitely not all oil in there. Grab my rag. And 14 millimeter here. 14 mil. You're going to want that one right there. You can see that let me change tools. That's not big enough for the blade. This is what I should have grabbed in the first place. You can see that there was definitely mud and silt under here. Look at all that nastiness, right? That stuff went through the whole machine. We're talking bearing. Who cares about the blades, right? No big deal. But these blades mount to a clutch, and that clutch has a bearing in it. Has a couple bearings in it. So what's that going to react like? long term. Let's pull off a wheel. Let's talk about that a minute. Wrong size. You should know that. It's a 12 mil, not a 10 or a 14. I think that's right here. Perfect. And a lot of these parts are not crazy expensive, that if they fail down the road, that it's a big deal. But I've got a bearing right here and a bearing right here. And Honda wheels for the front are around $15, and same thing for the rear. So they're fairly cheap. But the concern is how much nickeling and diming is this going to do? When are these things going to start failing? This bearing was submerged in this gritty water, right? I think it'll be all right. I definitely do see some silt buildup in there that will work its way into the bearings, and over time we'll have a bearing failure, which will lead to sloppy wheels, which will lead to the need to replace the wheels, and it will be all the way around, both front and rear. Let's pull off the rear while that oil continues to drain. Guess what? That rear one is bigger. That is where the 14 comes in. There we go. So on a Honda, pull this rear wheel off. We've got a big wheel gear. That's stationary. And then we've got a small gear. Here, let's move some stuff. I'm not going to be able to take that small gear off. Yeah, I will. Let me see if I can grab the right tool for it a minute. Or we'll just grab a screwdriver and see if we can pry it that way. I doubt it. Nope. All right, there's the right way to do it. Okay, clip is off. Then this guy should walk off if it isn't froze on already. It'll come off. There's a washer in the way here. So let's get that washer up so I can hopefully pry that thing off. It doesn't want to come off. There we go. Okay. Washer coming off slowly. I wish this was a commercial model. I know those way better. Those are the ones that I have to do the quick repairs on for my commercial clients so they can get back on the road. Okay, that washer off. Off comes this gear. And then underneath that, okay, so here, and this is good because we actually had some grease in there. See my nasty fingers? So that's going to have displaced the moisture. But this, and then there's a little spring under there. What about the grit under there? What's that going to do to the transmission, to the drive of this unit? Set these off to the side here as we continue to tear this apart. I'm going to turn it here. Let's get this dipstick back in. Actually, let's put oil in it real quick. Got my Honda 1030 oil. You can see, I don't know if you can see through there. You see that lighter brown color? That's indicating there was moisture in the oil. Not as much as I would have thought we would have seen, so that's a good sign, hopefully. You can see the rust on the muffler on the exhaust. That means that was submerged in water, which means that water probably entered through the valve train and did get in the cylinder. A little bit more here. You know, Honda makes a nice small bottle of oil that makes it really easy to do. It is the right size exactly, so you can just pour and not even think about it. Should be good. A little bit more. All right, and then we're going to pull the spark plug. Perfect. Pull the spark plug and we'll see what comes out of the cylinder. Hopefully no water. That would be awesome. And I'll be able to call this customer up with good news and hopefully have a wonderful running mower again. That's the goal. But is that really what we're going to get out of this? We're going to find out. So let's pull that spark plug out a minute. And we're going to pull off the air filter and pull the carburetor bowl. Just kind of continue to dig into it and see what we get. Definitely we'll want to replace the spark plug. I'm going to drain the fuel system. How does this baby look? Let's find out here. There's wet. There is moisture on the spark plug. Kind of see it on my hand right there. So that's water. So there was water in the cylinder. That's not fuel. That's not a good sign, but it's not a ton of water. I'm going to slowly pull the rope over. I can't do it. I pulled the starter rope off. We'll get into that in just a minute. Let's pull this off here. Unclip the fuel tank. Okay, let's drain this out. Put this off to the side and let it drain while we're talking about the rest of the stuff. Okay. A little bit of water in there. Yeah, a little bit of water in there. Okay, let's turn this so you can see. See all that silt down in there? We have it on the top here. Got a little more rust on the flywheel than normal. It does turn over. Turns over fairly well. Take a look underneath here, and you can see all that buildup, right? Now let's pull the air filter. Obviously, that, you know what? Let's put the wheel back together so we can set it right on the ground. I'm gonna, you know what? We're going to pull this a little further off. Get that grass out of there. We can slow down. We don't need to hurry through this one. If you get bored of watching, fast forward or move on to a next video. I can handle that. This is really an experiment for me just to kind of see what happened to this machine and how it's going to react to being brought back to life, and hopefully a long life, right? But here's our transmission, and that is just covered. So where did it get into the transmission, right? Where did this moisture get into the transmission? Carb cleaner, and so we got some carb cleaner. We're going to need that in a minute. We're going to take this Honda Lube rust penetrant, and we're just going to soak that down a little bit. Just kind of clean it up. Get some water displacement in there, right? Get some moisture pushed out of the way so that hopefully with that moisture coming out of there, we can get the grit out of there. And, you know, if you got a lot of time, you could continue to just dig into this and take it further and further apart with the hopes of getting it back to being a good, perfect running machine. But again, we've got some damage that's happened. So we're going to have to be aware of that. There we go. What's the life of this machine going to look like long term? Let's get this key back in here, right here. See how that thing plays in and out. Yeah, that's good. And then we throw this gear on. Yeah, I got to clean that. You can just hear the grit as I was. Let's use some carburetor cleaner for that. Okay. Functions. I can hear that key going in and out. Perfect. That's good. It's coming together all right. let's get this washer on, that one that was a bugger for me to get off. And okay, remind me I have to go back into this and put a new clip on, but it'll be good enough for initial startup because that clip is stretched out. Generally happens. So if you ever pull that rear wheel off, it's not a bad idea to have purchased a new clip to replace it with. And while I have this open, let's get a little bit of this in there, like so. And the rear wheel goes back on. As soon as we get this done, we will pull that air filter off and pull the carburetor bowl off and see what we get in that. Okay. Back up we go. So air filter cover, I got my 2 tabs I push in. Oh, yeah, this got wet. This filter is still wet. This happened a couple months ago. So that's wet. So that means that we did get moisture, water, whoop, into the carburetor. So let's pull this off. 10 millimeter is going to take this air filter box off. Now I've read a few things on bringing back to life of sorts flood damaged units, and somebody talked about removing the ignition coil and then actually setting that in, putting it in your oven at like 100 degrees for 10 minutes or so just to kind of dry it out. I don't know if that's necessary. Yeah, obviously there was water that got where we don't want to have it. I don't know if I'm going to go that far or if I would go that far, but it's apparently something that someone somewhere has used before. A little bit looser there. Okay, so the carburetor screws come out. And we got the air filter base that comes off. And the fuel line, which we've already unhooked from the fuel tank. Wrench. There we go. Okay. Carburetor is off. Can definitely see. That's the intake right there of the cylinder block. See that white? So there's corrosion. We had moisture in this machine. So it definitely got water down through that throat. Let's put a little, I don't know what the right thing to do is. I'm going to just do a little Honda Lube rust penetrant. Just push that through there. See what happens. Not going to hurt it. Let's open up this carburetor bowl. And I can see, even there, the white corrosion on the bowl of it here. Or on the intake. On the venturi, actually, would be the proper terminology. Carburetor bowl nut or bolt off there. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. There are water droplets on the side of that float bowl. Okay, so that indicates there's water in there. So we're going to have to just flush this whole carburetor. In fact, being a Honda carburetor and being how cheap they are, a lot of times I would simply just want to replace the whole thing. But the problem is how far do I go? Right? I mean, do I put $100 into this? Do I put $200 into it? Do I put $300 into it? What's next? you know, all these places right here, these pivot places, they had that nasty silt in it. So eventually it's going to do damage to this throttle body of the carburetor. I'm simply going to blow this one out, try to clean it, put it back together, see what happens. See if I can make this run in its current state without going too far. I'm doing a really bad job. I should be using a bench. This is great for you guys to see how this works, but that's all right. You can see the water right here. I don't know if you can see on the floor these puddles. That's water, okay? Gas runs flat, lays out, will dissipate. This water will just sit here on top of the gas. So when you see that puddling, that pooling, that means that we had, whoops, that's not what I want. I want the carb cleaner. That means we definitely had water in here. Take this, let's force a little carb cleaner through here. So when the float is down, okay, when the float is down, that allows fuel in. So if you watch, see how it's coming out the bottom of the carburetor? Now, when it fills with fuel, right, when that bowl is on and that's closed, see how there's none coming out of the bottom? It's all shooting back out at me. So that's kind of how float works. If you never have looked at that before, that's kind of fun to learn a little something on that. Okay, and let's blow it out just a little bit. So I don't know if it was the best thing the guy could have done to just let it sit or not. I'm glad he didn't pull the rope. That's good. I mean, otherwise we would have definitely been moving that moisture grit around, pushing it into bearings and causing long-term damage. So as I put this back together, hopefully I can do that, we're just going to actually see if we can get this thing to run. And then what I'm going to do is we'll actually clean it off, tear it apart more, like go into each wheel and lubricate those bearings. So I'm going to give it a good cleaning, and we'll put some spray in some of these bearings, and we'll do an extended kind of run test and see how long-term this thing does.
Hey, this is Josh from Carl's Mower & Saw. Thanks for watching our videos. We're proud of the fact that we've been serving you with the best in outdoor power equipment since 1990. We're glad that you had an opportunity to sit down, watch our videos, learn something about an exciting new product that we have, something that interests you for your property, or really how to use your equipment to the best of its ability. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube. We're excited to share more information with you. See you soon.